Anytime there's more than one fraction bar in the stack, you have a complex fraction. So first we'll discuss the meaning of this. This is 7/8 divided by 5/12. This is another way of writing that. And when you divide by a fraction, you take the reciprocal of the divisor and then you multiply. So instead of division, it's multiplication. And prior to multiplication, I'd like to reduce. Divide by 4, divide by 4, and multiply straight across. 7 times 3, 2 times 5. This is acceptable. This is reduced or simplified, but you can write this as a mixed number. It would be 2 with 1 left over, and you keep your denominator. But complex fractions get very involved, and this approach is not always practical. So I'm going to encourage you to look at the denominators, find the least common denominator. So we'll look at multiples of the biggest, because the biggest one is the hardest to accommodate. So you try 12, that doesn't work. 24, 8 goes into 24. Of course, 12 goes into 24. So 24 is our least common denominator. Now what we're going to do with that is multiply by 24 over 24. And again, we're multiplying. 24 over 24 is just a strange looking 1. If you multiply a number by 1, you don't change its value, you just change the way it looks. Now on the first one, I'll show a little more detail. This 24, you can think of it as 24 over 1. This is 24 over 1. And prior to multiplying, I like to reduce. 8 goes into 8 once. This will always be a 1 down here, so I'm not going to write it, but I'll show that it cancels. 8 goes into 24 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Notice that's exactly what we got over here. With the denominator, 12 goes into 12 once, 12 goes into 24 twice. 2 times 5 is 10. 21 over 10 can be written as 2 1/10 as well. I didn't point out at the start that these two problems are identical. I just wanted to show a different way of solving it, and this is the method that we're going to use. But notice you do get the same answer. Looking at this one, the denominators are 14 and 7, and 14 is the least common denominator. So we'll multiply by 14 over 14. Before we multiply, we reduce. 14 goes into 14 once. 14 goes into 14 once. 1 times 11 is 11. 7 goes into 7 once. 7 goes into 14 twice. 2 times 3y is 6y. So 11 over 6y is the answer. Now, even though there's a variable, first I'm going to focus on the coefficients. But we have a 9 and a 6. So you look at multiples of 9. That's 9. Doesn't work. 18. 6 goes into 18. So that's the coefficient. But the least common denominator has to take care of that x as well. So 18x is the least common denominator. That means we're going to multiply by 18x over 18x. X cancels x. 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 18 twice. 2 times 2, that gives us 4. 6 goes into 6 once. 6 goes into 18 3 times. So we have 3 times 5 times x. That's 15x. So 4 over 15x is the answer. Looking at this one, we're going to focus on just the denominators, which are 6 and 12. 6 goes into 12, so 12 is the least common denominator. This means we're going to multiply by 12 over 12. What this is saying is this fraction multiplies this fraction. So each term here has to multiply each term here. That is, the 12 gets distributed to the 2 as well as the x over 6. It gets distributed to the 3 as well as the negative 7/12. So we'll distribute this 12 to each term. And again, this is 12 over 1, but I don't want to keep writing that 12 over 1. It gets too cluttered in here. Now here there's nothing to reduce, so it's just 12 times 2 is 24. Bring over the plus. 6 goes into 6 once, 6 goes into 12 twice, and 2 times x is 2x. Here there's nothing to reduce, so 12 times 3 is 36. Bring over that negative. 12 goes into 12 once, and 1 times 7 is 7. Well, I've run out of room here, but the 24 plus 2x, we cannot combine them. They're not like terms. So that's the numerator. But the denominator, 36 minus 7, gives us 29. This is the simplified form. Finally, on number 6, we look at the denominators, 5y and 4. Focusing on the coefficients, we want multiples of 5. You look at the biggest one because that's the hardest to accommodate. 5 won't work. 10 still won't work. 15, 4 doesn't go into 15. But when we get to 20, that works. We also have to accommodate the y. So 20y is the least common denominator. This means we're going to multiply by 20y over 20y. And again, this means it gets distributed to each term. So distributing these 20y's, with our first one, there's nothing to reduce, so it's simply 3 times 20y, or 60y. Let's go ahead and put our fraction bar here. Here we can divide by 5. Divide by 5 leaves us with a 4, and divide by y. So it's just 4 times 1. Oh, forgot the negative. And then down here, nothing to reduce, so it's 2 times 20y. And let's see, 4 and 20, the common factor of 4, divide by 4. Divide by 4 leaves us with a 5 here. So it's 5 times 7, y. Also, I forgot my plus, so plus 5 times 7 would be 35. And don't forget the y. We have like terms down here. We can add these. So this is equal to, the numerator will stay the same. But our denominator becomes this cannot be simplified further. Looking at number 7, we'll focus on just the denominators, 2, 10, and 5. 10 is the least common denominator. So we'll multiply by 10 over 10. That means the 10 is distributed to each term in the numerator and each term in the denominator. Distributing the 10. Now simplifying, divide by 2, divide by 2, leaves you with 5 times 1. So that's 5. Bring over the positive, or plus. 10 goes into 10 one time, 1 times 7. Here there's nothing to reduce, so it's just 10 times 4. Divide by 5, divide by 5, leaves you with 2 times 3. Bring over the positive or the plus. So you can clean this up a little. This gives you 12 over 46, which can be simplified. Again, I've run out of room, so I'll put it up here. 12/46 can be simplified. There's a common factor of 2, so divide by 2. Divide by 2. And this is your simplified answer, 6/23. Looking at the denominators, 15 and 5. 15 is the least common denominator. So that means we multiply by 15 over 15, which means we distribute this 15 to each term. So showing the 15 distributed. And now we can simplify. Well, on the first one we can't, so we just multiply. 15 times 2 is 30. Bring over the negative or the minus. Divide by 5, divide by 5. 3 times 1. Here you can simplify. Divide by 15, divide by 15 leaves you with 1. 1 times 8y. Simply 8y. You can simplify the numerator. That's 27 over 8y. Looking at this one, the denominators are 4y, 3, and 6. So focusing on the coefficient, we'll look at multiples of the biggest, starting with 6. 6 doesn't work. 12. 3 goes into 12 and 4 goes into 12. So we have our coefficient, but we have to accommodate the y. So 12y is the least common denominator. which means we'll multiply by 12y over 12y. And again, this gets distributed to each term. So we'll show the 12y distributed. Now we'll simplify. Y cancels y. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. Leaves you with 3 times 1. Simply 3. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. Leaves you with 4 times 2 is 8y. I need to bring over the positive or the plus. Here there's nothing to simplify. We just multiply. 2 times 12 is 24. And you bring along the y. It's negative. Divide by 6. Divide by 6 leaves you with 2 times 5 is 10. And bring along the y. Now we have like terms in the denominator, so we can combine them. So the numerator is 3 plus 8y. 24y minus 10y leaves us with 14y. And finally, looking at number 10, the denominators are 10x and 5x. So 10x is the least common denominator. Multiply by 10x over 10x. So we distribute that to each term. Now we'll show it distributed and simplify wherever we can. X cancels x, divide by 10, divide by 10. Leaves you with 1 times 3. Bring over the plus. Nothing to simplify, so it's just 10 times 4 is 40. And you bring over the x. X cancels x. Divide by 5. Divide by 5 leaves you with 2 times 7. And there's nothing to simplify, so it's 10x times 1. And I need to bring over the negative. Nothing can be simplified here, so this is our answer. If you would like a little practice with these concepts, if you're at MrBforMath.com, I have 2 worksheets, each with a detailed answer key.